Welcome to this webinar on ESS BIZGrants. ESS BIZGrants has been developed to assist accountants to deliver business grant solutions to their clients. What was the problem? Many accountants were not identifying grants for their small, medium enterprise businesses, and at the same time, many small business operators did not know that grants were available. Yet there are hundreds of grants, totaling nearly $5 billion available each year from the various levels of government in Australia. A large number of small businesses were missing out on these grants. Why? As I said before, a lot of it was ignorance that the grants existed, and a lot of the problems was that accountants just didn't have the time, when combined with their income tax, corporate affairs, superannuation fund legal responsibilities, to research grants. So we've tried to do that for accountants to assist them in identifying the grants that clients might need. In lots of cases, businesses have not been set up correctly. Unfortunately, many grants are only targeted at companies, and there needs to be a discussion between the accountant and their client very early in the piece to determine what type of grants a particular business might be able to claim in the future. And then, if the entity should be incorporated as a company, make that decision as soon as possible. Some businesses don't have enough turnover, or they have too much turnover. There are turnover limits. Research and development has now got a turnover change at $20 million turnover. To be eligible for Enterprise Connect grants in capital cities for the manufacturing business, you have to have a turnover of $2 million, and so it goes on. So there are various turnover levels. Also, for many of the grants, businesses need to be established for a period of time. Enterprise Connect has a qualifying period that 3 annual business activity statements have to have been lodged. In fact, there is not many grants around anymore for pure startup businesses, other than Commercialisation Australia, which has a skills and knowledge program, but the prerequisite there is that the business needs to have already established a new product, process or service. There's no doubt that complying with government grant record keeping can be a bit of a pain in the neck, but that's part of the cost of receiving 50 to 80% government money for a project. Obviously, you'll have trouble in getting a government grant and then in maintaining it if the business does not complete the paperwork on time. And many accountants have been uninterested in helping clients to secure government grants. Well, we're hoping that this product, ESS BIZGrants, will convince people to think differently, because the service has been improved. We sat down and looked at a couple of hundred government grants, both state and federal, and identified the key consistent questions that were being asked all the time. We're using cloud technology to quickly and easily assist accountants to identify the government grants their clients might be interested in. Based on our research on the consistent questions, we've then developed a client profile template which is fairly easy to complete. It will only take somewhere between 5 and 8 minutes to complete that template. The information's then recorded within cloud technology, so if you're happy to leave your client details in cloud technology or issue the client with a reference number, then all you've got to do each year from there on is update the entry, and that will take a couple of minutes. So what I'm showing you now is a shot of the client profile for a hypothetical client, Canback Manufacturing. We've gone through and looked at this. The company has a turnover of 6.8 million. It has expenditure of $6.5 million. It's located in Bankstown in Sydney, which will mean that the system will identify it as being in a major city for the Enterprise Connect program. Enterprise Connect has different levels of classification of locations, from the major cities of Australia, which are Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, regional locations, and then remote locations. And there are different turnover levels applicable to each of those locations. And in fact, in remote locations, any type of business can apply for Enterprise Connect support, so long as they have a worthwhile project to spend the money on, and their turnover need only be $750,000. What we're showing you now is the summary of the entries that have been made for Canback. What we have there now is the address details, and that's where I said that the system has identified that the locations within the major cities of Australia, that was determined based on the postcode. Now, when we entered this detail, we could have entered another 3 or 4 locations. So if this business, which was based in Bankstown, had a branch in, say, Burke, which is very much in the remote locations, then that would have also been entered. And then the system would have been identifying any additional grants that the business might have been able to apply for because it's located in a remote location. This is just a summary of the financial details which have previously been entered for this client. Then we go to the business and industry profile. So it's very important that this page is completed. You need to identify which business the client is from, and we've identified in this case that they're a manufacturer, and we also need to identify which industry. And these industry classifications, there's 17 of them, and they're based on the Australian and New Zealand standard industrial classifications. If you're unsure, you can click onto that URL there. That will take you to the Australian Bureau of Statistics website, where you can go through and have a look to determine which industry classification you should be utilising. What I've done now is come through to give you an overview, first of all, of pending grants, so that when you go onto the system, you are able to review the grants that you may be interested in. And if you click on any of those items, that will give you additional details, so that they would give you details of the particular grant. So there's a summary of the manufacturing centres for Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane. This is an Enterprise Connect grant. There are 2 components. There's a tailored advisory services, which is a grant of up to $20,000 on a 50% subsidy basis. That is available for virtually any worthwhile business improvement activity. Now, accountants can potentially earn fees in this area because a significant amount of the work that's undertaken relates to business plans, budgets, cash flow forecasts, chart of accounts reorganisation, risk management strategies, action plans, mentoring type services, encouraging the business to be having regular meetings and operating as if they were a board of directors. And there's another aspect to this grant which is called Researchers in Business, whereby a business can employ a researcher, a university graduate from one of the universities or research centres, and the subsidy is available of up to $50,000 on a 50% basis to help the business implement a new product or service or a change in the business operation. There's no strict guidelines as to what those services are, because they can be determined on each individual business's requirements. We can then have a look at the funding details. So you would click onto that and you get the funding details, and that's showing you can get up to $50,000 on a 50% basis for that employment of a university graduate, or you can get up to $20,000 on a 50% basis for the tailored advisory services work. We've also included a grant toolkit because I wanted to have in the system that an accountant could then very quickly get some additional information as to what a particular grant was about. So we've included in there a paper which has come out of our main product, ESS BizTools. So it's an explanation paper as to how this grant works. We also have a checklist there that you can read and tick off that your client's going to be eligible for this. And there is also a specific paper then on the Enterprise Connect Manufacturing Centres grant, so you can get as much background information as you like. How we suggest you use this is that the accountancy team could familiarise themselves with the grant, or you could produce it to show the client when the client comes in to see you. And here's a sample. That's just the heading, so you could click on and you could get from the grant toolkit a particular paper which would give you a detailed commentary written for a targeted audience of small, medium enterprise operators. Some of these government grant programs, I don't know who they thought they were writing them for, but some of them are quite complicated. Some of them have got 3 or 4 streams of a program all mixed up into the same pages. What we've done is gone to great lengths to dissect those programs so that they're very easy for a layperson to read and understand. Understand what the program is there for, understand what the funding is, understand what their reporting requirements are, and understand any other obligations that the small business is going to be involved in. So we think that's very important. And then we've got just a heading there. Obviously there is an eligibility checklist that is also available for that, and we also had another paper. So we then go to the additional criteria. Now at the very beginning of this webinar I said that we had gone through 200 grants and had identified the key questions, and that's what we put into the client profile. But for these grants there are hundreds of other questions. In fact, if we put all the questions that might relate to all the grants that are in ESS BizGrants, we would have had about 550 odd questions. Well, obviously that was far too many to have at the beginning of a program like this. So we used the initial 20 questions, the prime ones, to create a funnel. And now, because you believe that your client might be interested in this particular grant, we require you to now answer some additional questions. In this case there's 5 of them. In some grants there's only 1. In other grants there might be 6 or 7, but we've tried to narrow them down to really facilitate you deciding whether a particular grant is going to suit a client. We've tried to put these questions in an order that the most important question is asked first. And obviously if you answer that question incorrect, the system will then say you are ineligible rather than being eligible. So we've already answered these questions, and incidentally yes is not the correct answer in each case. Some require a no answer. But we've answered yes. If we had changed that answer to no, then the system would have immediately told us that this client was not eligible for this particular grant, because obviously it requires them to be located in one of those 5 major cities. If you wanted to apply now, what we've brought up is the system will show you the URL of the appropriate government department. So in this case it's Enterprise Connect, and it would connect to their website onto the application page so that you could then download the application form and complete it if the client's given you the okay to proceed. So that what you would be getting is a potentially eligible report which you could go through, and then if you decided you could go to print report, initially that will give you a report on the screen that you can check first of all and decide that's what you want to give to your client. So here's a sample of the report. It's been produced, of course, for Canback Manufacturing Proprietary Limited. It's been prepared by your accounting firm. It doesn't come up and say ESS Biz Tools. It would say XYZ Accountants. And then what you have is a brief preamble on each of the grants. You'll notice that some of these there's no money involved, but there are products that the Australian Bureau of Statistics will send to small business. Some years ago you used to have to pay a few $1,000s to get access to that information, but a previous government made that available free for small businesses, and there's a lot of information there. Incidentally, the 2011 census figures have now been incorporated within the Bureau of Statistics databases, and they can be very handy when you're doing feasibility studies and looking at the potential clientele in a specific area. So the report's prepared. We just got a bit more of the report there, talking about some of the grants which we identified that this business. So there's a commentary on the one that we're featured, the Enterprise Connect manufacturing in a major capital city. Some of the other grants are listed there, so there's a few we identified, because remember in our profile we said that this business was undertaking research and development. They're also importing product. And at the end there's a disclaimer which is built into each page within the report so as to protect the accountancy firm and ESS Biz Tools, because we're not giving any guarantee to the small business client that they're going to be eligible for a grant. All we're saying is that they're potentially eligible. So that's the overview of ESS BIZGrants. I hope you can see that you can utilize ESS BIZGrants within your business. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us at peter@essbizgrants.com.au.